Hi guys, it's Dianne from Art of Craft. I'm going to show you some of the techniques I use in art journaling over the next few weeks, and I'm putting out probably a video a week about it. If you're very experienced, this probably would interest you, but otherwise there's just little tips and techniques that I've learned over my playing within these books. I like using the Dilutions journals. You can get it in 2 sizes. Mainly because although our first techniques I'm going to show you to do with gesso, these are great for wet media, which you don't necessarily need gesso for, which I'll explain later, but it does give you lots of texture and makes it lots of fun. So those are the Dilutions creative journals in 2 different sizes. Art journaling is fun. For me it's a place where I can experiment with product, but whether you're art journaling, whether you're making cards, whether you're doing scrapbooking pages, all of these products can be used doing that. Why do we art journal? Well, why do we scrapbook? For me, it's just the pure enjoyment of creating. It's very fulfilling, and I'm very passionate about doing it. I can't even imagine not crafting. One of my mottos is make no excuses for art. There are people out in the world that will say, well, why? Why are you scrapbooking? Why are you art journaling? The same reason why a person plays golf. I mean, you could go for a walk and get as much exercise. They're passionate about it. Why does a person fish? They fish not to provide food because it's very expensive. That it would be much cheaper to go and buy a couple of fillets of fish at a shop. So the point is that this has a purpose. It's fulfilling, it's fun, and I love to share it, and hopefully I can inspire people to get as much enjoyment at it as I do. So here's a few of the products I use. This first one's going to be all about gessos, and you can see gessos here. The other thing I use a lot of, you'll see me using, is Tim Holtz ink blending tool. For some reason the sponge is marvellous stuff. It's great to apply with, but it stays wet even when you're using gesso, so the gesso doesn't go really hard on there, and you can rinse it out a long time after, and we know that gesso dries very quickly. I use fan brushes, like large fan brushes like this. I use ink sweepers. I use pouncers. You'll see me using brushes. Now these are all quite very inexpensive things. I mean, even in New Zealand this is only $6.95, this fan brush, and for you ladies overseas, our money isn't worth as much as yours, so $6.95 might seem expensive to you, but it's not really. These are very cheap brushes, and I like the texture of them because I can get good marks through my work. I also use these. You can get them disposable ones, but I prefer the metal ones. One of the things I want to mention to you is, if you love to art journal and you like using lots of product and texture through stencils, your craft scrubby, the Ink Essentials craft scrubby from Ranger, is the most fabulous thing for getting your gesso. Gesso is the worst thing to get off any of your stencils, but it comes off magically with this without damaging the stencil at all. You can use alcohol, rubbing alcohol to get it off, but that's too much trouble for me. I'm always in a mess, so I use one of these and it doesn't damage it, and it just comes off beautifully, so please remember that. It's great. Okay, using gesso. Gesso acts as a resist, and you can see this isn't a finished layer out or anything, it's just where I'm playing, but you can see this line here. So this inner piece has been gessoed, but this outer piece has not been gessoed, and what that does is the colours, like these are dilution sprays, they are very intense wherever the gesso isn't, but then you get this pastel-y effect through the middle of your work, and that's just purely by getting your brush, dipping in your gesso and making a frame. You can drag out on the edges, you can do all sorts, and wherever the gesso is you'll get these pastel effects, and wherever it isn't you'll get these intense colours. And that's why in these dilution books sometimes I don't gesso at all. It's just purely to, I just want this colour here, just plain, so it'll, all those beautiful rich colours will soak in. To set up my book, I just use baking paper, and I know what size I like, so I'll get a couple of pieces of those to put between my pages, just so that it doesn't, I don't spread my product around too much. And I'll just pop a piece down there and a piece down here. Now you can see I've actually gessoed this one over here in a texture, and you'll always get a bit of this happening over on the other page. It doesn't matter because you can touch that up later, and as I said, that's not finished anyway, so there's still a lot of work to be done on it. So I find baking paper's the best, and basically I just set it up like so. A lot of people tape down their books. You just do whatever makes you happy, and the reason why they tape is so they don't get this sort of seepage coming through from the sprays. I don't care about it because that won't show once I have done whatever I'm going to be doing on this page. Another thing I like to do is do several at once. So when I'm gessoing, I'll actually gesso up quite a few pages, and you'll see examples of me doing that later on in the video. And all I'll be doing is making these pages that I can show you here. Okay, this page for instance, I don't know whether you can see any texture on that, but there is actually lots and lots of texture on that page. I've applied my gesso very thickly onto the page, and then I've actually used a stamp, a text stamp, the one from Tim Holtz Pippin set, but you can use anything you like. I don't know whether you can see the texture on this one, but it's actually got like words in it. I'm sorry for the light reflecting through the windows, but it's got texture on it. And I've used that stamp after I've applied gesso to this page really thickly. I've just used this book as a stamping pad, so I've put the stamp down on it, and then I have stamped the words every which way on here using the white gesso. When you see me complete these pages later, I don't know whether I'm going to use stains or paint or ink, but you'll see how those words will come through as a layer on my pages. You can see my stamps get pretty yucky, but these are the impressions. I don't really care. I'll just be placing them, dumping onto this thick stuff, going onto here and going like this all over the page. Another example of that is where on this one, which is a lighter coat of gesso, but I've actually taped some areas off in here so that later on as I'm layering it up, I can actually peel this tape back and it'll be clear underneath, and I can do journaling. Don't really know, sometimes I'll leave the tape on depending on what I'm doing. It's all about using gesso. It is your base. It's the thing that holds everything to your pages, and if you're using paints on there, you won't use as much product. The gesso reflects the colours and the pigments of the paints better. This is one where I've actually used both black and the white gesso. You can actually get a clear gesso too, which is another thing we'll experiment with down the track a bit. But you can see where I have just used down now. Now I don't know what these are going to become. I haven't got a clue. I just experiment until I get what I want. There is one here that you'll note. It's very textured here, and you'll see me doing that later on in the video too. And this is where I've actually layered it up using my palette knife, but I have put more layers of the gesso on it. Not only have I got the ridges through just applying with the palette knife, but I have actually used my heat gun to bubble it up to make these areas very textured. So often I will do that. I'll go through and I'll put these into my book and just see what I come up with. You'll see me do this one, which looks an absolute mess, but it'll come up fine. In the scheme of things, where I've used my fan brush and both black and white gesso on there. Thing to be aware of is, if you're doing it this way, is when you're doing anything, like for instance this page, and you use a heat gun, where I've done a bit of resist here with using stencils and gesso again, the white gesso. This page here has got some embossing powders in there. always be aware and always put your paper in, because if I heat this up to give it a quick dry, it'll reactivate anything you've got on this page, or if this was heavily gessoed, it even might make it bubble through. So be aware to put your paper there first. Another trick with these books that you can do is, if you're having trouble, we can't use Mod Podge in New Zealand very successfully, or I should say I can't, because of our temperatures here. It remains sticky, and often my pages will stick together. So I stopped using Mod Podge and started using the fast finish decoupage wherever I needed it in my book. But another trick is, if you're getting this happening, especially when you're heating, what have you, you can actually sprinkle a little bit of talcum powder in there to keep your pages, if you've got a especially sticky one, to keep them apart. And it won't really make a big difference. Another thing to note that I do a lot of, because I don't concentrate, I'm crazy, I'm just doing stuff, is I often put these things in my books upside down. This is in the book upside down. I don't really care, because it's my experimental book, where I'm just trying different things and playing with it, and it's a new one to start to do things with. And don't forget, when you've got these finished, because the card and everything is so good, if you're a card maker, you can cut sections out of these. A lot of people just buy it purely because this card is wonderful to deal with wet media on, and it stamps beautifully. And then they'll make something, and then they'll cut pieces out to either put in their scrapbooking pages, on their canvases, on card fronts, and actually cut out the pieces they want. So that's a grand idea. So gesso, you'll see me using it in a few different things, and I will try and finish a couple on the video so you can see what we're up to. There are a million uses for it. If you don't need it if you want these really rich, strong effects, but you do need it if you want to extend your acrylic paints, make them last longer, or you want to, with your sprays, you want to get this nice pastel effect through. You can stamp over it, paint over it, ink over it, do anything you like. It's got tooth. It's the grounding of your pages. This one I'm going to use lots of things on, but for a start I want to start off with my light colours, and I'm going to use the Distress Stains. I've decided I'm going to work this one, well at the moment I've decided I'm going to work this one into some sort of forest scene, so I could use anything on it, but your Distress Stains are great, they'll move around your page as well, and they'll go over gesso, they'll be pale, but I want to be able to put it all over this page really quickly, so I'm just going to use this, and it'll look a bit strange because it's the yellow. Okay, that started that. I'm bringing a lot of stamping, some bird life, some texture. I really want to put some more texture on here using the Distress embossing powders, which is something I love. So you can see I'm just getting it ready to turn into my scene. Okay, this is the page that I stamped with this and the gesso. I'm going to be using some Tim Holtz paint, distress paint on it, and the scattered straw, the tarnished brass, and the aged mahogany. I could change it as I'm going through, but that's what I'm going to do for now and show you how this comes up. see how the gesso resists. And you've got to remember your layers. This is, because this is distressed paint, once this dries, this will also resist. But what's so wonderful about the distressed paint is you can blend it well with water and make it move around in more ways than just this, because I mean, you could make acrylic paint, any acrylic paint do this, but it has some fun properties to play with. Okay, so you can see it on that one. I'll do another one. Remembering at all stages, this is just the first layer. When you do these pages, you'll be layering, you'll be stenciling, you'll be putting objects in, you'll be embedding photos into them, which is another thing. Gesso is really good. You just pop your paper, your photo down, and you can embed your pictures into it. So these are just first layers. You'll see me completing different layers down the track. This is the layout or the gesso page that you saw, where I had actually put tape through it. And when I pulled the tape off, I decided to go a different way, and I was going to stamp journaling words in there, but then I decided I was going to use alcohol inks on this particular one as my base. But I actually sprayed it with dilutions first in some different colours, funky fuchsia, vibrant turquoise, a little bit of London blue, and a little bit of after midnight. And then I decided I was going to drip alcohol ink on it as well and spray it with some alcohol, rubbing alcohol in a mini mister. Now, this is going to ruin your mini misters, so don't do it unless you really want to, or rinse it out straight away, because it'll eat away at the plastic. But it's just something you can do. But I'll show you what I did with that. I also love this pearl one, which is one in the alcohol inks that it's another one of those ones you have to shake up, but I don't actually use very often because I thought the effect of it wasn't very good. But I often do effects like just running the pearl onto something. I don't know whether you can get the beautiful effects that this does through the video, but it really looks beautiful and shimmery and lovely on your work. And I kind of figured that this is going to be a stamping scene, even though it's got those words. I mean a ocean scene, even though it's got words and things back there. It's irrelevant. But what I've done is, when I actually did this originally, is I sprayed it and I put the alcohol ink in with it. But this time I'm just going to add some bits over the top for whatever reason. See what happens. Just to give you an idea that you can alcohol ink over gesso and get some cool effects. I've just chosen a few colours that kind of blend in. If I don't like them, I can just remove them. Not worried about that. And we'll just spray some of this rubbing alcohol on there. Get it moving around. If I don't like what it's doing, sometimes I'll pounce it, sometimes I'll just close my book up, let it go, see what happens. Move it around with a blending tool. Probably the one with the felt is better, but I also use wipes. And just let it go where it's going to go and dry it when you like what you see. And you'll see again, although I've muted it out, that texture is still coming through that I've done on the background. And you can even see where I've pulled off some of that tape, but it's just adding to the effect of being under the water. Page that I put the gesso on, and I bubbled it up, and I've just been going around putting some using my finger and using archival inks to colour it. I'm using the archival inks on an ink blending tool and just going around and highlighting all these knots, all these bubbles. But you've got to remember that this is, because it's alcohol, because like alcohol ink, archival ink won't move with water, so there's nothing you can do about it once you've got it on there, except if you have got some rubbing alcohol, then you can move it around. So I'll show you that in a minute. I've used my finger most of the time when doing this, and that's how I take out my fingerprints, by using the rubbing alcohol. You notice how it just catches on all the places where you've textured. When you're using the archival ink, it'll remain sticky for a while. You'll need to dry it, because remember, the archival is an oil-based permanent ink. I like what these coloring's doing. It kind of reminds me of those prehistoric rock. I might stamp some of those images in here. And the gesso is helping this flow along the page more than it normally would if you were just putting this straight onto paper. You can actually use your archival re-inkers on this too. It's great. Rubbing alcohol and it'll move around. As long as you've got a base, you've got to have that gesso underneath it, or have put a coat of something like fast finish decoupage on your paper so that it won't soak in, because if you put alcohol ink straight onto paper, it also just soaks straight in, and the archival would be the same. It would just grab too quickly. Get a close-up of some of that. You can see how it gets right into those areas. Get some nice texture onto your page, so you can go on to your next, whatever you want to do with your next layer. I look forward to seeing some of you at the classes that are coming up, starting from March onwards, and hopefully these little demonstrations that I do will help others of you that can't make it to any of my classes. Thank you very much for watching.